Hi, loves. Welcome to my show, which is Be With You. And in the show, we talk about love, life, and everything in between. And today on the show, we have a trauma informed in- intimacy coach, and she helps singles and couples create deeply intimate and loving relationships by healing from their trauma that they have had from their dysfunctional families. So we have Devika Saha, who is a coach from Mumbai, and she coaches different. Her clients are in India and also in abroad. So tell us about yourself, Devika.
Thank you so much. Thank you Thank you for anyone who's watching this. I am Devika, and as rightly Samhita said, I'm an intimacy coach. My work in intimacy spans around sex and relationship coaching, self mastery, emotional healing, emotional mastery. All of this, the way I help to attain this, like create an amazing relationship, deep, intimate relationship where you feel not only emotionally fulfilling, but you feel fulfilled with your other needs like your physical needs, physical intimacy, and your emotional intimacy. And all of this happens by healing certain trauma patterns and trauma wounds that we unknowingly get inflicted on or carry on from our family of origin. And I call it under dysfunctional family of origin because it has many different categories under dysfunction. Some
Mm-hmm,
are
mm-hmm.
narcissistic abuse, some are neglectful, emotionally neglectful parenting, some are emotionally immature parenting. So there are many different ways under dysfunctional, and all of them have a varying degree of how they affect your emotional development as a child, which is still dictating your relationships as an adult.
So welcome to the show, Devika. The first question I would like to ask you is, what does a healthy relationship look like? Because you are a coach and you are, dealing with people having these problems and helping them solve it. But according to you, what does a healthy relationship look like?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because, especially in our coaching world, we talk so much about red flags, but rarely
Yeah,
do we talk about what a healthy, loving,
yeah.
harmonious relationship looks like. And I feel again, it may sound basic, but the thing for me, whenever a client comes to me, especially a couple client comes to me, for me to understand if they are, even if they are having conflicts or even if they're having certain rough patches, if they are a healthy relationship at large, I look at these three things. One is, do they have mutual respect between each other? Do
Hmm.
they have the willingness to work and create this fulfilling harmonious relationship for each other where they're not saying things like you're asking too much, or this is too sensitive, or this is just this is a weird ask. They're not like shaming the other partner's needs, even though they may not understand the other partner's needs, but they want to fulfill that. So that is the second point. The third point is this having similar value goals, similar life
Okay.
goals. For example, both people in the couple in the relationship want similar things for their family, for their relationship. They both want the relationship or the marriage to work. They both want to create, for example, a large family with multiple kids, or maybe they don't want kids, both of them. So, how are they on the same page with these bigger life goals? Because these are our core values which do not change after a certain time. If you're 30 years and above and you know that you do not want children, it's most likely not going to change. And if you're married to someone who wants children, that is a mismatch of value, and that is a huge mismatch which I look for if whenever a couple comes to me. So these 3 points tell me that if they have these three things all right, they are a healthy couple with a healthy relationship, and everything else, like the conflicts and rough patches and everything, can be resolved.
So what are the three things again? Can we enlist?
Sorry?
The three things can we enlist which you told us right now?
Yeah, I'll start from the last. The last
Huh.
one that I said was being literally on the same page with your core
Yeah,
values,
yeah,
life goals. Second one is this having this empathy and kindness where you are willing to work on your
yeah.
relationship and
And
fulfill your partner's needs, even though you may not understand their needs sometimes, but you know that you want to do this. And first one is basically communication and how you are viewing your relationship. Basically, is there mutual respect? And I
mutual
feel
respect.
when one person or both people are not ready to communicate or even not trying to communicate, there is lack
Hmm.
of respect. So respect is huge, and that should be mutual. So that those are my three foundational points.
Yeah, that is great. That it's really important. Now we go to the next question, which is like the area of your work. How does the childhood emotional patterns affect our adult relationships?
Thank you. That is a huge question, and I have, I have actually a free guide on this. So if any of you want to have the free guide, you just can get it from the links of this recording, or just message me or Samhita. The free guide actually talks about the five fundamental childhood emotional wounds which dictates our adult relationships, and the most two common ones that say today is abandonment and rejection, that manifest in so many different ways in people. Like, this is how people become either avoidant attachment or anxious attachment, because that's a coping mechanism where the underlying wound is they have this fear of abandonment, or they have this fear of rejection, and
Hmm.
because of that they're probably not even open to a committed relationship or opening up vulnerably in a relationship, or they become too needy and too, like, putting themselves down and the other person on a pedestal. It manifests in different ways. So this, when you are a child up to 7, like below 7 years of age, that's when you're like a clay, I say, like, and you're molding a pot with a
Yeah.
clay, and your emotional landscape is getting molded like a pot. And what kind of experiences you have that time with your parents, with your caregivers, guardians, and even your family of origin. By family of origin, I mean like the family that is beyond your parents, like your uncle, aunt, your
Mhm.
grandparents, your siblings. So that kind of experience, were you, the basic things that I talk about, do you feel when you reflect back on your childhood, even if you may not remember the details, did you feel cared for? Did you feel your emotions were accepted and honored and seen and understood? Did you feel that you did have the space to express your emotions as a child, even if they may have not meant anything to your parents or any logic to your parents?
Okay.
Did you have that space, or were you shut down? So these are the things we do remember the feeling of it, even though we may not remember the actual memories from our childhood. And if somewhere, if you feel these were the things that you did not get, you may fall under any of these five childhood wounds which are still dictating your intimacy in relationships.
And so if somebody has those childhood wounds in them, how do how does it, make that person attract a wrong person in their adult life or as a partner in their life?
Yeah. I would say mostly it's not always that you attract a wrong person. Some of my clients, they do attract the right people, because innately they have that emotional resilience to later on recognize who's the right person for them. But they have some chaos or issues or conflicts
Mhm.
going on, because even if they are with the right person, the relationship is not fulfilling because of their wounding still creating issues and still creating conflicts. On the other hand, yes, that is also possible, where a lot of men and women attract wrong partners, and all both of these are actually their subconscious mind dictating the familiarity of what they have experienced as a child, because our subconscious mind's main work is to help us survive. It doesn't want us to, like, it's not the job of our subconscious mind is not to put us in a thriving, fulfilling, harmonious spiritual bond relationship. That's not its work. Its work is to help us live, survive in this world where it's literally thread
To
and
protect us, yeah.
danger every second of the day. And for that, it always goes towards what is familiar, even though that familiar situation may not be serving you, may be toxic, may be unhelpful and painful. It will still choose that. So if you have grown up in a childhood where there were these woundings, there was toxicity, there was neglect, and there was emotional pain, you're likely to attract or recreate those emotional patterns in your relationship as an adult.
So how do you describe somebody who is for the right, I'm not finding the right word, but the abuser, the person who actually inflicts and makes a child go through such emotional patterns? How do you describe this person?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because a lot of people, when I talk about this, especially about their parents, and it's such a sensitive topic to look at your parents
Yeah.
in a way that they might have wronged you and they might have harmed you emotionally.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm not saying that every parent that has given you these emotional wounding is an abuser. That's why the dysfunctional is the category. They may
Mhm.
be immature themselves because, our previous generation, they did not have the tools and the resources we have today. Maybe the life situation was such that they could not, even if they had the resources. For
Yeah.
example, I did have a client, her mom was a single mom because for the first 10 years of her parents' marriage, her father was the caretaker and financial everything, like everything her
Hmm.
father did. Mom was a housewife, stay at home mom. And suddenly, with a heart attack, her father died, and her mom had this shock, like, because her mom did not know how to handle the family, suddenly had this shock and went into depression. And she was in depression for years. And that is an emotional neglect for a small child who's a 2 year old, because she's now the child has not only lost her father, but has also lost her mother. So that does not make her mother an abuser, but it does create neglectful parenting, which has severely impacted her abandonment wounds, her rejection wounds,
Okay.
which we are working on now when she's an adult and she's having problems in her relationship. So that's one category. Just to give you an example where every parent is not abuser. Now,
Yeah.
how do you know if your parent falls under like narcissistic abuser or any other kind of abuser? Is first of all, they will you'll find this manipulative thing about you, like they will somehow try to manipulate you for their own advantage, because an abuser is never considerate of you. They are always looking out for themselves in a very self-obsessed way. So anything and everything that you do, they have a way of making it about themselves, and this is where narcissistic abuse comes in. uh, and no matter what you do for them will never be enough. No, even if you literally like how we say, bring moons and the stars for them, and they'll always be complaining. They'll ever say like, yeah, so what, this is just not enough, I was expecting better. So that's another sign of an abusive parent. Another sign is they're always very attacking. They will literally remember small, subtle things that you might have unconsciously done wrong and make it so big to attack you and make you feel like you're not good enough, and completely minimize the good things that you may have done. Because a
Okay.
narcissist or an abuser wants to have control over you.
Control. Yeah.
So how can they have control? By exaggerating the subtle mistakes, because we are human beings, we make mistakes. So they will exaggerate that. And on the other hand, they will minimize the good things that you might have done. And as a child, you accept it, right? Because they're your parents, you don't question a lot. So this massively damages your self worth. And that's another sign of narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
Another
Yeah.
sign is if you have any problems with decision making, people pleasing. If you find yourself mostly pleasing people, or not being able to say no to them, and also decision making, like make actual big life decisions for yourself. And this, a lot of married couples get this confusing because they think if they are in a marriage, they should, like, their spouse should take decision for them, but that's not true. Your spouse is like a team member who will counsel with you, who will advise with you. But
Mm.
ultimately, if it's your life, you get to make that decision because it's your life. Or for example, it's your business that your spouse is not a business partner with. Your spouse will advise you, your spouse will counsel with you and support you, but ultimately decision should be yours. And that is a healthy marriage, that is a healthy relationship. And if you're not able to have that, there are high chances you were not given the chance to make decisions for yourself as a child. And that is a sign of an abusive parent, because abusive parents or narcissistic parents do not like you having that independence of making decisions for yourself, because then they start losing control over you. So those are some of the many signs of a narcissistic abusive parent.
So when talking about narcissists, there are, I think I have read it somewhere, right? Some people have narcissistic traits,
Hmm.
and some people are they have narcissistic personality disorder. So how do we, differentiate between these two?
Absolutely. I love this question because when I was unconscious of my emotional woundings, I had narcissistic tendencies myself, and I openly say this. And I was also using some of the manipulative tactics in my relationships because unknowingly I had inherited because you're a child, right? You're seeing that your parents, how they are living, and you unknowingly emulate that for yourself. So I was doing a lot of the narcissistic tendencies in my relationships back then when I was not in this personal development world at all. But I'm
Okay.
not a narcissist because there are huge differences. Someone who is an NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, which is also like that person is narcissist, and the other person who may have tendencies but is not a narcissist is big differences. You can work with a person who has the tendencies to finally make them realize, and you will feel some kind of empathy and compassion from them, so their response is going to be very unpredictable and mixed, which was me. In my relationships I was a mix of empathy, compassion, but then also manipulative and controlling.
Okay.
So when you see a person who's like, going in waves like this, like in mix, that is a trauma response, because that was my trauma response, where my natural emotional landscape is very compassionate and empathetic towards people, which sometimes used to come up. But then sometimes when I used to get scared, I used to go back to my narcissistic tendencies, which I've learned from my abusive parents. So that's when my behavior would fluctuate. But then if my partner or my friends would try to make me see how I am fluctuating and how my unpredictability is affecting them, I would have the capacity to self reflect. I would have the capacity to apologize and self reflect that, yeah, you know what, I don't know why I did that. I just felt very scared that you leave me. And so I thought I just have to be angry at you so that you don't leave me. So becoming that vulnerable and admitting your mistake is someone who is not a narcissist and may have narcissistic tendencies because of trauma response that they have unknowingly learned from narcissistic environments. On the other hand, an NPD, someone who is a narcissist, they will not have the capacity to self reflect. No matter what you say, how much you try to make them realize their patterns, how lovingly, gently you try, you can literally die for them. They'll still not realize. They'll be like, are you not seeing that I'm not at mistake here? The situation, at mass, they'll say the situation was wrong, but they will not take ownership of the situation. Initially, they might say that you are wrong. And when you try to explain to them very lovingly and, with all of the love and
Hmm.
sacrifice and everything, they may not blame you, but they'll still not take ownership, and they'll say the situation was wrong. We didn't know, but I didn't have better resources. I was a single mom, or I became a widow. Instead of taking responsibility that it doesn't matter that I was a widow or a single mom, I was a parent who should have taken responsibility. So those are huge differences.
So I have heard Dr. Ramani, who talks a lot about narcissism, and she says that a person who says that I have narcissistic traits can never be a narcissist,
Yeah,
because somebody who is a narcissist would never accept that they are the reason or they are the problem, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because someone who has said that I have narcissistic tendencies, or even things like, hey, could I be narcissist? They cannot be in NPD. They may have narcissistic tendencies like I had because of that. And that is a trauma response, honestly, because that is a defense mechanism they've created to safeguard themselves. But someone who's a narcissist will never even self reflect. They'll just like, what is this? Like, you are doing some new age theory and,
Yeah,
all these new age things, and now you're trying to teach me.
they're always right. Yeah, they are always right. Also, Dr. Ramani mentions that there are 1 in 6 people who are narcissists in the world. Is it like you are also a coach? So do you think it is so? Is the
Absolutely.
proportion right?
I feel that I'm not saying that there are a lot of narcissists are there, but there are quite many. And
Mhm.
also, I would love to bring up this that nowadays it's also become a trend. Anyone who is having conflict with you or not agreeing with you, there is this term is thrown that you are such a narcissist.
Narcissist.
So I don't agree with that as well, but I do
Okay.
agree that 1 on 6 people, as Dr. Ramani said, that is absolutely true. They are narcissists. And what description I gave in the beginning between people who may have tendencies versus who are actually narcissists, you can always reflect that in your mind to understand if the person you're dealing with, who you may be having a bad experience with, are they operating from their wounds or are they really a narcissist?
So, like you mentioned, that the emotional patterns that we learn in our childhood are the same patterns that we carry into our relationships, and we attract a person or we have a relationship which is based on those patterns. So, let's first talk about the emotional patterns, or the emotional bonding a narcissistic parent has with their child. So, what are the signs that a parent is a narcissist or an emotionally dysfunctional parent?
Yes. One of the things would be they will be extremely controlling, and
Okay.
controlling can manifest in many different ways. Either they would be, I call this category covert narcissist, where they'll try to show themselves like a victim and they'll try to gain sympathy. And that is one form of gaining control because they are trying to gain sympathy from you. As a parent, gaining over sympathy from child is not fair because that is a child. That child is not here to parent you. You are supposed to parent them. So when you see a parent trying to parentify you, it's an actual therapy term that is used. When a parent is trying to parentify you, that is someone who's a covert narcissist because they're trying to show themselves like a victim and gain sympathy from you in a way to control you. The other version is someone who will be like the strict person, the military person who will literally be a detective. You'll have this feeling, and this was my mother. You'll literally have this feeling that someone's watching you all the time. And this is the because they will use, and these people are intuitive, they'll use their intuition also to spy on you. You will never know from where they will find information about you, and they would be like, and innocent things they'll use to to control you. For example, like, that day when you said your tuition class would get over at 5 p.m. and then you'll come home by 6 p.m. Like, yeah, I know that you spend time with your boyfriend after 5 p.m.
Oh,
And that's why you come at 6 p.m. If you didn't, you would have come home by 5:45 p.m. And they'll use their intuition or some kind of knowledge or information to gain information about you, to gain control and put you in either shame or fear, because shame or fear are the two tools that a narcissistic parent will use. So any kind of situation, in short, that you felt with your parent, if you consistently felt fearful or shameful, that is an abusive parent.
okay. And how, when we attract, when a person with such emotional grounding gets into a relationship, what kind of partner does he attract? What are the traits that a partner of a person who is been abused or who has been into such dysfunctional emotional patterns in their childhood, what are their traits?
Yeah, so it completely depends on their coping mechanism. So if someone has coped it in such a way, for example, that this first example was me, that I had this awareness that my parents are narcissists, and I didn't know the term narcissist, but that I knew they're toxic and they're not all right. So I created this over defense where I was overly untrustful of people, and how that manifested in my relationships was I was very quick to leave people. I was not able to open up or trust anyone. And because I already was so defensive, right? So that was my coping mechanism, which was not helping me create fulfilling relationships. The other coping mechanism is where you feel I'll give so much love that my parents will change someday. I had a friend like this. I will give and unconditional love is the wrong definition this person will have. They'll think that I'll give love at my expense, and someday my parents will see that I'm such a sacrificial Mother Teresa that they will love me back. And that will manifest in a relationship where they will attract a partner who will majorly take from them and will not have an emotional reciprocity. And that is just like the two big examples. Of course, there are nuances in these, but these are the two big examples. So, what kind of coping mechanism are you creating in this toxic environment? And that will dictate what kind of relationship is manifesting as an adult.
So also I had also in one of the interviews I had watched, in which there was this person who was also a narcissist abuse survivor, and he said that a person who is a narcissist and a person who is an empath, they have a give and take relationship.
Yeah.
So both of them are into some dysfunctional emotional patterns, but what narcissistic person needs is fulfilled by an empath, and what an empath needs is fulfilled by a narcissist. Do you think it is true?
I don't think it's true in a healing way, but
Yeah.
it justifies why an empath would choose to stay in an abusive equation, whether it's their parents, family members, or even spouse, because it does serve them in their feelings, in their survival part of the mind. Because, and I say this like some of my clients who mentally know that they are in an abusive relationship and they should leave, but emotionally it's so painful for them that they can't, because there's a difference in your mental capacity and
Yeah.
emotional capacity. I tell them to not leave immediately. I tell them to leave later on, because if they do leave, their mental capacity will be so, like, nervous breakdown or any such thing can happen. There will be so much in flight or flight mode, that it will disrupt their daily life, their daily chores, and they might go into depression or anxiety. Rather than that, when they come to me, I say that let's start our coaching, let's start the healing and get you to a place of self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency, not hyper independence, is a place where you can take a decision to leave that toxic relationship, where once you leave that, your emotions won't be so much in pain. I call it debilitating pain, that you literally go into panic attacks or depression.
Right. I think you are an amazing coach. Where with your answers, it's really reflecting. So, when you talk about narcissism and when you talk about the abuse, okay, and the person who survives that abuse, so like we say, our mental health reflects on our physical health, right? So, what are the any? Do you have any physical characteristics like symptoms which you can see in a person who is a survivor of narcissist abuse?
Absolutely. And this is why in my coaching I work on four levels, because I feel emotions are not just your emotions. They work on four levels of your mental level, your physical level, which is your body based, your emotional, and also there is a spiritual level. Unless you cut cords and you heal your emotions from abusive people, environment, event, from all of these four levels, you will still feel some kind of tie or cord tethering to that person or to
Hmm.
that situation, or some fear to that
Hmm.
situation. You'll still somehow unknowingly give your power to that situation, person, or that abusive environment, unless you've really healed and cut your cords from all four levels. Which is why I feel that a lot. Sorry, could you repeat your question?
So I was asking you that do the abuse survivor have any physical
Yeah.
characteristics?
Sorry, that was I was getting. So because it affects four of our layers, the physical body is people what normally overlook. They don't work on the body when they're healing narcissistic abuse, because they think it's mostly mental and emotional. But
Yeah,
bodies, because your body keeps score, your body actually stores all of the trauma,
yeah.
and when you're not releasing or processing that trauma, the first thing that happens is hormonal imbalances. So if I see someone having hormonal imbalances, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, PCOS, I know they've been through some kind of trauma. Like, your body naturally is very healthy and naturally has the ability to heal itself with certain small things that may be wrong in your life. But if you have been through, and this is how it manifests as CPTSD, complex your nervous system literally does not know which hormone to pump at what time. So sometimes it pumps cortisol, sometimes it pumps dopamine, because it's in the flight and flight mode, right? So if for your subconscious mind, the threat is playing at all times, even when you're not in threat. So it's literally pumping adrenaline and cortisol at all times to keep you alert. And that high cortisol and adrenaline sometimes manifests as insulin resistance or diabetes or PCOS, heart attack, chronic fatigue syndrome, all of these and so much more. But whenever I see a person having these, I know they've been through some kind of trauma.
Okay, so we can actually look at the person and actually equate it back to what that person has been through. My next question to you is, how does a narcissist, like if you have a narcissistic person in your life and you want to maybe leave him, or maybe start your own new life, but
Mhm.
the people who are survivors, they are so much into that person, their emotional bond is so strong, you can say, because they are controlled in some way. So how do you let go of somebody who's a narcissist, but at the same time you are very strongly trauma bonded with him?
I think the first and the foremost thing is you should want better for yourself. Like, want, even
Yeah.
if you don't know how, even if you recognize that this relationship or this marriage is toxic for me, and you don't know whether it's narcissistic abuse or what kind of abuse, but you know it's toxic for you, and
Mhm.
you want better for yourself, that is the first step. Without that, none of the coaching, none of that, nothing can work. Like, I cannot help you, God also cannot help you if you don't want better for yourself. So first thing is, you should want better for yourself and recognize that this particular situation or relationship is not serving you. And second, be ready for the steps that needs to be taken to help you first of all get out of that, and then get you somewhere that's better, because this is not an easy task, and that person should know that once I want better for myself, I should be ready for challenges, grieving, and emotional pain as the first few onset of the side effects. Like when we take medicine to heal a wound, it is painful in the beginning, but after that, the wound is healed. So they should be ready that I'm determined enough to take the steps that may be painful in the beginning, but in the long run is going to be extremely fulfilling and liberating for me. So that is the second thing that this person should have. And the third thing is, of course, they can start studying about their symptoms, like the kind of emotional pain they have. And they have internet, so they can literally do anything with internet. They can start looking at content of creators who are talking about marriage issues or relationship issues or emotional pain or whatever pain or suffering they're going through. By doing that, they will finally land up somewhere where they resonate with a coach, therapist, counselor who can help them. And they know that, and they have to accept that that is just a starting point. They will have some way, long way, because I do not recommend, if you've been with a narcissist, especially for many years, that it's a quick cut and you just go out in a month
Yeah.
or two. That's not how it works. Unless, of course, it's a new relationship, new marriage. That's a different story. So you have to also accept as a fourth step that it will take time, and you need to have patience and determination. And someday you will get out of this. So those four steps I feel are very, very important for someone who has recognized that they are in a narcissistic or abusive environment or relationship.
So when they are now getting out of a narcissistic relationship, do you suggest that they should work on forgiving the narcissist, or how do they deal with the emotions of after leaving a narcissist in their life?
No, I'm. This is where I'm very different from other coaches and other people, where they talk, I know, spiritual uh, advisors who say a lot about forgiving.
Hmm.
My theory is very different. First of all, forgiveness does not come in the four steps that I just said, because forgiveness is so later, when you have come out of that environment, when you have healed, and then when you look back, you can forgive the situation, but not the person, the situation.
True.
But in the beginning, when you are already in the trenches, forgiveness, I feel any trained professional in this field, any coach or therapist should not even suggest forgiveness in the beginning till that person has considerably healed and created a better life and situation for themselves. And after that, also, when they are forgiving, they're forgiving that situation where they were helpless and abused, and that version of them, but not that person. Because I don't think a person who has inflicted so much trauma and abuse on you deserves forgiveness. But that situation where you were so helpless, that version of you that has gone through that injustice, deserves forgiveness.
So there is a lot of mental trauma the abusers, the person who survives abuse goes through. And sometimes it is mentioned that they also experience loss of identity. So
Mhm.
how do we actually, think around it, and how do we get back our sense of self in such situations?
Yeah, I feel identity work also happens much later. The four steps that I said, that is the little four steps that a person should do. And forgiveness, identity, and all of this is literally like rebuilding stage. First, you have to break down the structure that's toxic for you. And the first four steps is breaking down what is chaining you, what
Yeah.
is abusing you.
Controlling you. Yeah.
That you can't think of like my identity, who I am, or I am, what kind of a leader I am, or what kind of a person that I am, or what's my dream life. So many of them can't even think about their dream life when they are in these abusive situations. And I don't think a trained professional should even get to that stage in these four steps when they're doing, because the first four steps is all about you taking the, I call it like first aid kit, to create maintenance, so that whatever trauma has happened till now, more trauma does not happen. And
Yeah.
whatever has happened till now, how can you create steps to get out of it? Because when you want to leave narcissists, they already have created so many chains of control, maybe your bank account, your social media account, your so many places, that you suddenly leave them and they will make your life hell, because they have so many touch points and control which they have created, like their claws in so many years. So you have to be strategic about leaving them, where you start changing your bank account passwords or you start changing your social media passwords and things like that. And then very slowly you come to a stage where now you know you've created independence in that relationship for yourself, and now you've taken the decision to leave because they don't have any power over you.
So when we talk about breaking up, it is as such, it's a very difficult thing for normal individual. And when a narcissist goes through a breakup, because we are talking about somebody who is abused, leaving the narcissist, what is the reaction or how do a narcissist react to their abuse, the person they're abusing, leaving them?
They'll try all the ways, like how in Hindi we say tam dam thunder wave. They'll do all of those things. They'll first try to exert their power over you by threatening you, dominating you, and even sometimes taking revenge and threatening you to not make you leave. When that doesn't work, they will try to get into the sympathy mode. They'll cry. They'll show their worst side. They'll try to show that they've been through so much pain and bad experiences, so much injustice has happened for them, so they deserve a second chance. So that's the second thing they'll do. And even that won't work, the third phase is where they pretend that, I'm going to therapy, or I'm becoming a better person, or I'm donating in charity, or I'm basically, they start showing that they're becoming a better person, the person that their abuse, like the victim wants them to be. So they'll start becoming that person that the victim wants, but not really become that person, but more like a facade to show them that we have changed. For example, if the victim doesn't like that her spouse drinks alcohol, he'll say that I have not even touched alcohol in 6 months. I am a changed person. I'm going to therapy for alcohol addiction. But that is not true, because the moment she will come back in that relationship, he'll go back to.
Okay. So they are just trying to manipulate you into coming back into the
Yeah.
relationship in every
And
way.
if you feel your spouse is an exception, which can be, I'm saying there are exceptions are rare, but they're possible. The big difference is you will see that even if they are doing therapy, or for example, they're leaving alcohol, they will not do it to get you back. They will do it for themselves,
Their
for
betterment.
their own life improvement. And that is a huge change, because a narcissist will pretend to get better for you to get you back in relationship. And then, that's not really change. That is a facade. That is a pretense. Because if they really are changing, which is a rare case, and I'm not negating that, maybe 1 in 1,000 a person can be like that. Miracles can happen. You will see the big difference is that person will do personal development therapy or alcohol anonymous or whatever they are pretending to do for themselves, not for you. And that will tell you that if this person is actually improving or not.
Also, when we talk about these bonds, this narcissist and the victim bond, right? Many a times the victim who is in the trauma bonded relationship with a narcissist tries everything possible to make things better, to maybe improve the relationship. They try everything possible and then they break up, then they leave the person. But many a times in the back of their mind, it is what they think that if at all it did not, get better with me, it could get better with the person, the next person. So does it happen? Have you experienced something like this, that a narcissist improved in their next relationship?
A narcissist will not improve, because for them to improve, they need to self reflect, take responsibility of their actions. Until they are not able to do it, they're just going to be in this loop no matter what. They are single, they are in multiple marriages, monogamy, polygamy, God, doesn't matter. They're still going to be a narcissist. So, you investing your time, energy, and life force into improving them is a
True.
waste. You literally now have to take your power back in creating self sufficiency for yourself, where you ask yourself, if you are staying in this relationship, there is definitely something that you're getting from this relationship. What are you getting? How is it serving you? Are you getting financial security, or are you getting some kind of emotional security? And then ask yourself, how can you create that security by yourself, self sufficiently, so that you don't have to stay in this toxic relationship for that thing that you're getting.
Yeah, right. So that is how, narcissists control, and, we break the narcissist control, right? By working on ourselves. Now, I also want to ask that we have seen how narcissist tries to control the people or the victims, but why is it so that they have developed such narcissist tendencies? What is the reason that narcissist has become narcissist?
Yeah, this was a question that I had for a long time, because for a long time when I knew that my both my parents are high functioning narcissists and both of them have NPD, I thought maybe they have developed not that time when I was not a professional earlier. I thought maybe they developed narcissism because of the challenges they had growing up, because they had really challenging environments where poverty and war. They've been through a lot of things, like literally immigrating as refugees. They've been through a lot of hardship. So I thought maybe so a part of me, I wanted to have empathy for them, compassion for them, that it's not their fault. They've been through this kind of hardship, and that's why they became narcissists. But that's not true. If anyone's listening to this, that's not true. Why I'm telling you, someone who's been through a lot of trauma, like I'm saying, like war, immigration, and poverty, and even abuse, that person may have tendencies, like, maybe because that's a trauma response. They may have tendencies, but they will not be an NPD. NPD is something that someone innately has. And challenging situations like war, poverty, and abuse just exacerbates it. But when a person is innately compassionate and empathetic, they may, if even if they've become narcissist by tendencies because of trauma response, there will be a part of them that will have compassion and empathy, and they can improve because they will realize, especially when their situation will improve. For example, they were born into a lot of poverty where they maybe didn't get even one square meal a day, and because of that they became kind of manipulative, and they developed narcissistic tendencies. But once they have created a good life for themselves, where they have money, food, and financial stability, which was the problem, they will become good people, because that is the external factor which made them develop certain manipulative or controlling tactics, but they were innately not narcissistic. But a narcissist, when they become, like, the situation improves, even if they become rich and famous and everything, they'll become even more narcissists because money does nothing but exaggerates who you already are. So
Yes.
NPDs, they innately have this quality and nothing can change that. But the other people who develop tendencies because of hardships, when their external situations improve, they do definitely improve because they have resources. Like when I used to have narcissistic tendencies, I had them because I was going through a lot of poverty, hardship, debt, and abuse from my parents, of course. But then when I created success for myself in my business, I had the money and the resources to invest in therapy, in coaching, in changing my environment, getting like a different apartment for myself away from my parents. So that helped me change and become the natural, compassionate, and empathetic person that I'm born as. So external conditions, when they change, people will change who just have tendencies but are not NPDs. But NPDs will not change no matter what. In fact, their narcissistic tendencies or narcissism will actually exacerbate more, even with more money coming in, more success and fame coming in.
So money actually exacerbates the person that you
Yeah.
truly are. Yeah.
Money is something that will just literally, like a magnifying glass. It will magnify who you are. If you're already a giving person, if you're already a generous person with money, with more wealth, you'll become more generous. You'll become more this giving. But if you're already a miser person who has fear of losing money, fear of people taking advantage of you, with more money, that fear will become more, because you'll feel like, now I have more money and now people can take advantage of me even more than before.
Yeah.
So money has nothing to do with healing you, rather exacerbating whatever you already have.
So now we are almost at the end of our podcast, our show. So there are many friends of mine, there are many people who are having problems in their relationships, and many people, they just don't have any idea. They don't actually track their emotions back to their childhood, or what is the source of the problem. They never think about it. They just think that, what can I do to save this relationship? So what is your message for such people who are having a hard time and want a healthy relationship in their life?
I would just say that, you working on yourself, on your self sufficiency, your self worth, you don't have to worry about saving the relationship, because just because you are working on yourself and creating self-worth does not mean necessarily the relationship will break. There are times when actually you working on your self-worth will inspire your spouse or your partner to also work on
Work.
their self-worth, and the relationship can become much better. I have those examples with my clients as well, and also examples where the partner is not ready to work on themselves and breakup is the only way. So both scenarios are possible, and there is a 50-50 chance of both. So you have to decide that which 50% you want to believe in. Do you want to believe the other 50% can happen where your partner created inspired by you and both of you can create an even better relationship, or do you want to just hold yourself back fearing the other 50% where you will outgrow them by developing your self-worth and then breakup will happen?
Okay, so thank you so much, Devika. Also, you will be sending us some video, right? A course about,
I'll send a guide about the
yeah,
5 childhood wounds. I'm going to put the link after
yeah.
this, and people can download it from there. You'll have my social media link, my Instagram and Facebook. You
Okay.
can message me if you have any questions.
So you can actually try yourself and see if you have any wounds that you carry in you, which are manifesting into in your relationships, and then contact Devika to help you out. So thank you so much, Devika, for being here and having all of our doubts and relationship problems, dealt with from
Thank
your
you
side.
for having me, Samita.
Yeah.
I'm
Th-
grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.